Within every era, there are different ways through media, in whatever its various form, that one can define themselves from the previous generation, which normally holds disdain for that new thing which the youth often practices as an act of rebellion. Music is one example of this. One generation hated rock, the rock generation hated heavy metal generation hated rap, and now that generation hates modern music, which our youth has embraced. I think it's our way of defining our generation as different from the last, and these things which define our generation will persist when we look back and reminisce of simpler times. Think of the new Star Wars movies, all the new Marvel and superhero movies, the reboots. They're all capitalizing on when the grown-up generation experienced simple, joyful times of their childhood. Another form of media which helped define an entire generation was Dungeons & Dragons. This game faced considerable backlash from the previous generation, even being denounced as satanic. And now today, that generation is at an age where they're diving back into their nostalgia. And along with them is a new generation that has embraced Dungeons & Dragons as well, allowing it to surge in popularity. Now, in my early childhood, I had not yet been exposed to Dungeons & Dragons. But what was my form of Dungeons & Dragons at the time was card games. Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering, Vanguard, Buddy Fight. These were, to me, what was the prior generation's Dungeons & Dragons. It was just rebellious enough without the stupidity of rebelling through more harmful methods. Now, in my middle school at the time, Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards weren't exactly welcomed, almost being akin to gambling by their standards. So there was a secrecy to it, which, well, added a thrill of rebellion to the act of playing card games. Not only that, but one of the students had a large collection of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards which they were selling. We would gather in secrecy to buy these cards from them. It was invigorating. There was a surge of adrenaline and excitement from practicing something that is taboo. It's within our culture, even back to stories of the forbidden fruit. The drive of the taboo is a powerful one. It's in our nature. If you tell someone not to look down, the first thing that they're going to do is look down. Each generation takes part in this. Taboo music, Dungeons & Dragons, underage substance consumption. There's a lure of doing something which you know is wrong. Eventually, of course, the school realized that card games were harmless and trivial, but by then we had embraced them as ours. I think it's important for a generation to have this relatively innocuous means of embracing taboo and rebellious to define themselves and their generation. And though the world has become more and more technology-based, I hope each generation can find their own version of whether it be Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Dungeons & Dragons to embrace and define their generation by.